My name is Kimberly Hudgins, and this is my critique on Article 31, Machiavelli and Leadership, written by Richard P. Calhoun for Jacksonville State University's Business Leadership course. Calhoun first introduces his audience to who Machiavelli is and the significance of his work to leadership theory. Niccolo Machiavelli was a famous Renaissance author who provided extensive analysis on leadership and leadership theories. He produced the two most influential writings on leadership, The Prince and the discourses on the first 10 books of Titus Livius. He also created the theory of Machiavellism, which is a leadership theory that a person in power will manipulate others in order to achieve personal gains and interests. Calhoun goes more in depth into the theory of Machiavelli and reflects why his works have such a lasting impact on leadership theory. I think this is very relevant to understanding why Machiavelli has had such a prominent role in leadership theory. By understanding Machiavelli's personal history and background, we can get a glimpse of why his theories have resonated so long and is so relative to modern administration. Machiavelli was born in France in 1469 and received an extensive education on classical history, which would play a prominent role in producing relevant examples to many of his theories. He experienced a turbulent administrative climate during 1498 to 1512, during which time he held several diplomatic assignments throughout Europe. This provided Machiavelli with a unique first-hand experience with those in power. From 1512 to 1527, Machiavelli was exiled from France due to regime changes. But during this period of time, he was able to produce his most famous works and theories: The Prince, the Discourses, the Art of War, and the History of Florence. I think by understanding the man and the history that shaped him, we can gain a better understanding as to why his administrative and leadership theories have lasted over 500 years and are still very relevant to today. Calhoun also includes 5 specific reasons, in addition to his personal background, as to why Machiavelli's theories have had a continued lasting impact. I think Calhoun's 5 reasons are very accurate and help foster an understanding as to the very relatable leadership theory Machiavelli creates. The first is Machiavelli's scientific point of view. He believes that it is Machiavelli's orderly, logical, objective analysis of data that has allowed his findings and theories to continue to be pragmatic and practical. I think it's this very scientific structure of Machiavelli's writings that have allowed so many from all over the world to easily comprehend his theories and examples. The second is the very laboratory Machiavelli was able to experience during this specific time in history. Machiavelli's laboratory was the turbulent historical period he was able to witness, providing him with a constant stream of leadership examples from many city-states and monarchies. Calhoun states that no other time in history were so many acts immediately relatable to so many persons and to such immediate consequences. I think this is a very accurate statement from Calhoun and possibly one of the most important reasons as to why Machiavelli had had such a lasting impact. The third reason Calhoun believes Machiavelli's period of exile. This period of time in Machiavelli's life allowed him the ability to reflect on his experiences and write about his findings. I think it's very important to understand that without Machiavelli's exile, he may never have produced the works and theories he created. The fourth reason from Calhoun was Machiavelli's use of the observational method. By applying such a scientific method to studying leadership, Machiavelli was able to look at a range of leadership actions and expose many leadership facets. He also applied a critical incident approach when studying many of his examples and past experiences. I believe it's a scientific and detail-driven method that has provided a relatable leadership theory. The final reason Calhoun discusses in Machiavelli's use of historical analogies as relative examples. These examples have provided readers with parallels in behavior that illustrate the actions of leaders that are very relatable throughout history. I think this is a very valid reason as to why there's a continued lasting impact. I completely agree with Calhoun that these 5 specific reasons, in addition to understanding Machiavelli's personal history, are plausible explanations for the lasting impact from Machiavelli's observations and analysis. Calhoun explains that it's important to understand why Machiavelli had a lasting impact in order to understand the relevance to modern leadership. More importantly, he describes the similarities between Renaissance leadership and modern administration. He claims that the leadership dilemmas between the two eras are still the same. There are still rivalries between agencies, competitions for power, residual fears of failure, subordinates, and our superiors, and problems at motivating people. I believe this idea that dilemmas are still the same for leaders, even over 500 years, is very accurate. The situations may be in different environments, but the tactics used and the responses are similar enough to keep Machiavelli's analysis of leadership very relatable today. Calhoun presents a theory at the end of his article. This theory is that most modern administrators may exhibit Machiavellian tactics for personal gain or the achievement of organizational objectives. He also supplies specific reasons as to why administrators may utilize this form of leadership: ambition, organizational constraints, failure of less directive methods, ignorance, personality, loyalties, and self-interests all factor into an administrator's decision in a Machiavellian behavior. Calhoun states that by administrators becoming more aware of these factors and the behavior used, they can counteract these Machiavellian tactics to prevent damage to self and their organization. I think it's important to understand why administrators may utilize this leadership behaviors in order to become more aware of the organizational environment that may contribute to Machiavellian behaviors. As for my personal opinions on this article, I believe Calhoun presents an excellent theory as to why Machiavelli's works continue to have a lasting impact for more than 500 years. I think he explored all the possible reasons as to why the leadership theory is still very relevant today. I do agree with Calhoun that it's important to understand the historical atmosphere of the writer in order to better understand the lasting importance. I also agree that the leadership dilemmas are still the same throughout history, even though the environment of those dilemmas may have changed. I do understand that most administrators, because of specific factors, will utilize Machiavellian tactics at some point in their careers. I completely agree with Calhoun's observations that it's extremely vital for administrators to be aware of these tactics and behaviors in order to hinder Machiavellian actions and protect their own interests, and more importantly, the interests of the organization. I personally believe Calhoun did a great job at analyzing the reasons for lasting impact, the connections for Renaissance leadership and modern leadership, and the motives of the modern administrators utilizing Machiavellian tactics. So, does this theory contribute to the management practice? I would agree that this theory does contribute to management theory and practice. Calhoun explains that the reason for Machiavelli's lasting impact is a clear, organized, and concise manner that is easily understood. His arguments are valid, and he explores all areas for consideration, from Machiavelli's personal history, use of the scientific point of view, the utilization of Machiavelli's laboratory analysis, the constructive period of exile, Machiavelli's successful use of the observational method, and his distinct use of historical analogies all contribute to the lasting impact of his theories on leadership. Most interestingly, Calhoun believes Machiavelli's leadership theory is still relevant to modern administration. and administrators must be aware of Machiavellian tactics in order to respond or counteract effectively. Thank you for taking your time to watch this presentation and critique on Richard Calhoun's Machiavelli and leadership.